Well, what's the crack? We're live. We are live on Thursday night again. We thought it went so well last week whenever McAfee dropped in. We'll do it again and see if he drops in again. It was great crack. Michael McQuaid, Hogan, Hayes, Jason. I'm going to start with you this week. Congratulations, Parky Queeve. 4 games in the Euros. Did you tell him I wasn't going or something, or what's the crack? Or
be a nice audition now for the NFL. Show them what kind of event we can hold down in Cork, and then we're just going to bypass Croke Park altogether. Go straight to Parky Queeve.
We got our main t-shirt sweatshop producer here, Mark Hogan, who has brought out all 32 teams. He hasn't slept in 4 weeks, and he's only been eating Fruit Loops for that time, but he's here. He's live. I'm trying to be funny. It's not working because I'm too tired. Week 3, Mark. We've made it through 3 weeks, my man. I can't say the number 3. How are you getting on?
No, we've made it through 2 weeks. Don't wish away the season too much. But we've had our 2 weeks at home watching games. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But our schedule now for the next few weeks, Michael, is we'll watch in J.R. Mahans, next week. We'll then watch from Croke Park with the Steelers watch party. We will then go to London for 3 weeks, and we'll see our families again come the late end of October.
Potentially 3 weeks. Who knows at this point? Hopefully we get in. We'll see the crack. Anyway, delighted to be here. Pro Football Ireland, we're live Thursday night. If you're listening on Friday or Saturday, Gurmy and Morgan, thank you so much for watching, listening on the podcast network. The podcast was ahead of McAfee last week on the Irish charts. So Gurmy and Morgan, do check it out, Pro Football Ireland, on all podcast platforms. We are presented by our partners over at 88 Sport. They are the official sports betting partner of the NFL in Ireland and the UK. 18 plus, begambleaware.org. And just before we start off here, lads, let people know, as Mark said, we're in J.R. Mahans on Sunday, myself and Mark, from around 5 o'clock. And there's the Eagles against the Saints on, and we've also got the Colts against the Bears and Red Zone at the very, very least. There is €1 off all pints, which means the pint of Guinness is the cheapest pint of Guinness in Dublin during Red Zone on Sunday night. And there's also a free food platter. Never mind the fact you get to, see me and Mark and have a bit of crack. God help you. I'm going to be there until the last train. So really, really excited for it. And also before we start off, because I know people listen and then they pause and have a bit of crack, I want to say a massive thanks to everybody that bought tickets for Neil in Dungannon. It's 1.4 miles from my house. I mean, I don't want to cry, so I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much, folks. 130 people in 24 hours is insane, and Neil's really excited as well. We really, really appreciate it. And then just let people know, we all have a big Super Bowl night in Dublin on the 31st of January. That's on sale Friday a week, which is Friday the 27th of September. And there's also a Black Friday watch party on sale that day as well in Sean Cavanagh's territory in the Moy. And finally, if you're watching this live, leave a comment live and we will answer your questions at the very end of this show/podcast. Is it a show? I don't know. But Mark, we're here. Week 3 is on top. How do you feel generally right now? Motivated?
Oh, motivated. As a fan goes, it's a season that I can pay attention to, it seems, with the Cardinals. As a season goes, a lot to be seen, I suppose. Is that the only answer I could give? No, it's been exciting. It's definitely been exciting to start us off.
It's been exciting. And Jason, you're obviously a very, very busy man at the minute. You're moving house, etc. Have you had much of a chance to actually sit down and look at some tape? I'm joking. The lad has not, folks, this man has not stopped tweeting about the Arizona Cardinals. Can you send me some of the stuff you tweet so I can put it on Instagram? It's been great to watch from afar, my man.
Yeah, I had a nice sneaky little misinformation tweet during the week. I edited, you seen this no-look pass from Kyler Murray? I edited the photo so it makes it look like he kind of turned around a lot sooner than he actually turned around. Kind of like that Tiger Woods walk-in putt, that famous kind of doctored video. So it's nice to get some misinformation about Kyler going the other way. A bit of positive misinformation.
Hey, Jason, who had it first, you or Nate Tice? Because I know Nate Tice was credited with seeing and having the footage out first, but he was the one that spotted it.
He had it. Yeah, he had it. He had the legitimate version. I had the doctor version.
Okay. I thought he saw yours. I thought he saw yours, and Nate Tice was baited into looking into it and was actually like, no, this is good enough to post. Okay, I'm sorry.
You see, I'm just a peasant who can't access game film until the Tuesday when it's available on his own. So all these guys have it on Sunday night or Monday morning.
Gatekeeping. That's all they're doing, boys. Gatekeeping.
Can't hear you, Mick.
For anyone that's listening along right now, they don't know that Michael is talking away on video, but has no idea that his microphone has been muted this whole time. Welcome back, Michael.
My apologies. I was laughing at you about that last week. I was actually ironically telling people that week 3 started, unless you're Marty McFly and your DeLorean up the north, etc., 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 with the Jets against the Patriots, and what a game that is. I can't wait to further my career with L'Oreal Men Expert after watching Aaron Rodgers in his de facto second home debut. And if you're listening to the weekend, we got a full slate ahead of us. Mark, let's get right into it, my man. It's obviously a very, very busy week, a moving week like every week is in the NFL. But when we see teams that are 2-0 and we see teams that are 0-2, we have to start talking about different teams and start, getting the panic button ready. Not a great start for some teams, and when you see some teams that are 0-2, I think it's time to probably rank them, isn't it, in that sense? Do you want to talk what we're going to do here?
Yeah, I mean, hey, tradition at this point. Just two of 32 teams in the last 4 seasons have gone to the playoffs. And that's since the 7th playoff team was added. So I suppose it's that whole thing, isn't it? It's like, who's going to be this one? And we decided for a bit of theatrics, why don't we do it at draft style? Because I think it might be obvious who the favorites are, but if we can go through them one by one, boys, we're going to go. And I think I'll start. May I have the first overall pick?
You can't. I'm just looking at that McAfee doll that you have in the background again, just full screen for people on the video.
Hey, he's having a point. He's having a point this week. I actually fixed his arm so it's held upright, so he's cheering us the whole time. So the subtleties in this game, Michael, are not lost on me, all right?
Yes, just ask if you can have the first pick again, if you don't mind.
May I have the first overall pick, please? I am now on the clock.
I've got the wrong thing. I've got Jingle Bells music on, but I used to have the NFL draft music and I don't have it. But you're on the clock, my man. Go for it.
So I should just say the teams that we are talking about now are going to be the Colts, Titans, Ravens, Bengals, Jags, Panthers, Rams. Have I got them all? Something like that anyway. But obviously, look, and the Giants are in there, of course, the 0-2 teams. So there is 9 of them. Actually, this works out quite well. Obviously, I did the maths beforehand. I do know that there will be 3 rounds, 3 picks each. If I take the first team off the board, it'd be no surprise. The Carolina Panthers. It's been an interesting week for Carolina. Their last day of being relevant was probably on Monday when they benched Bryce Young. Let me start by saying that this is not going to be me defending Bryce Young. We haven't had a podcast, those 3, since it happened. I know everyone else has talked about it. Bryce Young is absolutely rattled. I think it was halfway through the third quarter the other day when a wide open Adam Thielen, instead of targeting him, Bryce Young scrambled out of the pocket and left Adam Thielen literally just arguing with himself, making shapes at the sideline, completely over it. He said he regretted it afterwards, but he worked so hard that, Bryce Young not getting him the ball there. But to me, and I should say also, we talked about Dave Canales had turned around Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield the last couple of years. Could he do it with Bryce Young? But to me, I've no idea whatsoever why the Carolina Panthers chose this of all weeks to bench Bryce Young, because he was going to get scapegoated. If you're done with him, he was going to get scapegoated. So it's like, why not ride that train for a little bit longer? For a team that has been outscored 73-13 the last few weeks, granted that can be partly due to where the offenses set you up and stuff. For a team that's been outscored 73-13, I don't know why you're putting all that in Bryce Young. It means the coaches have to say now, just without him, we're going to be able to make this whole thing work. It puts them under severe pressure. And, Dave Canales, obviously, you can call it growing pains and stuff like that, but they're going to have to deliver now, the coaches, whereas you could have just scapegoated Bryce Young.
I feel like we're going to talk about Bryce Young a lot during this podcast, but Jason, looking at Bryce Young, do you feel like this week was a weird time, and like Marcus said, because I feel like everyone's just falling apart in Carolina, and eventually it's going to, just completely combust. Like, they're going to have to eventually get Tepper out of that team, whether it takes this year or next year or whatever. It's getting to the point now where I don't want to say it's getting like boring news, but, I feel for Bryce Young. I really, really do.
Well, look, they've had a full off season, so benching him after 2 weeks is a strange situation, because you think they would have seen enough sample size behind the scenes to be fairly confident with that quarterback choice going into the season, and so just to completely give up on it literally after 2 games, I think is shocking. Normally first round picks get the benefit of the doubt for longer than most. Forget about first overall picks. So I don't think it's hard to even look at a comparison in recent years that you can point towards and say we've seen it done before. It is just uncharted waters. Close example that stood out to me was maybe a few years ago when Steve Keim decided to move on from Josh Rosen just a year after drafting him in the first round and pivoting straight to Kyler Murray. In that situation, he was able to get a second round pick back for Rosen, and I feel like it might just be gone too far to get something like that for Bryce Young at this stage. But just the one comment that stood out to me from Canales, and it was only part of his overall statement with Young, but he mentioned he wants players full of pride, or they want to be proud to be out there. Thought that was an interesting thing to say when talking about Bryce Young. So maybe there's a bit of an attitude thing behind the scenes that they can forgive poor play, but if he's not showing the right mental attitude and demeanor behind the scenes in the quarterback room, maybe I don't know what's going on, but that's the one thing that stood out to me, and I think that's the type of thing that will lead a coach to make a change sooner rather than later, because he wants to set a good example in front of all the other players in the team.
Do you know what? It is difficult though when you talk about Bryce Young, and this isn't supposed to be a Bryce Young segment. This is just the Panthers being the worst 0-2 team
There's
in
no
the league.
way, Mark. We're getting through 9 teams here. We're going to go through one each. I think it's the best.
No, absolutely not. We're going through all. But the thing, because we cannot, if all the teams are going to be, I'm not using my pick on the Panthers. I'll tell you that much. The two most comparable quarterbacks are Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, who have also been in Carolina, which is the funny thing. Look, I know it's been different regimes, but we wrote off Sam Darnold's career on Halloween when he was seeing ghosts and he was able to bounce back. Baker Mayfield was also attributed with having poor relationships and being a hot. They've been able to get over that, and now we're going to talk about Sam Darnold later on this podcast. And we all know what Baker Mayfield is doing with Tampa Bay and being locked down as their number one quarterback this offseason. It's like, it's not on Bryce Young. Like, look, this is why I don't get involved in all that pre-draft. Like, I have the same take as you do, except I came up with it myself. All that nonsense of NFL talking heads that seemingly are draft experts. I don't get involved in that. It's like now everyone's putting the blame onto Bryce Young, saying we didn't see X, Y, and Z in college. It's like, well, you're the ones that told us that he was the first overall pick. Like, everyone backtracking now. It's like, I'm not saying that Bryce Young has a future in the NFL, but I don't think it's with Carolina, who went with drop the ball Deontay Johnson and have a first round pick Xavier Legette that you're hoping to step up in 2 games. Like, the system isn't around Bryce Young anyway, so it's like any quarterback is going to be doomed. You're now going with Andy Dalton, who has a ceiling himself. It's like let's see it happen with another team first. It's like, is he a Carson Wentz or is he a Sam Darnold or a Baker Mayfield? Like, that's still to be seen. There's no point in writing off his future yet.
We do have a segment on Sam Darnold this week coming up in a bit, and I will talk about at length how he looks like Dark Harger at a certain point going forward. The next team that there's no way we're getting through all 9 in an hour here, lad. The next team we're going to look at here is the Denver Broncos, and anyone that knows me, relatively well knows that I have a relationship or some sort of existing fan base with this team, and the Broncos are 0-2 to start the season. Like, that's not really the shocking point here. The shocking point is, well, everything else, to be brutally honest with you. 26 points in 2 games, 4 from the offense, but their top running backs are averaging a combined 2.3 yards per game, and they've got this rookie quarterback in Bo Nix that's thrown more red zone interceptions, 2, than the Broncos have touchdowns, 1. The biggest concern here, I would say, you're talking about Bryce Young and the Panthers. Last week in a press conference, Sean Payton, who at a time, I remember very well, Mark, we were in your neck of the woods in Phoenix, and this man was the second coming. He basically said in the press conference after a game, he questioned, saying, what scheme fits our players? What scheme fits our quarterback? Literally asking the press this question. I mean, that's concerning. You've got an offensive line that's had his issues. Michael Ginchy has an MCL issue. He has really struggled with pass protection as well this season and last season at times as well. Garrett Bowles hasn't got off to a good start to the season. Luke Wattenberg as well. This is a team that I can see just go into free fall. That game against the Steelers last week was a real opportunity for them to try and get something going with Bo Nix, who at times showed a bit of confidence in Seattle. it's not there. I mean, Bo Nix is leading this team on rushing yards, 60, and it's mainly a scramble to protect himself when he's in trouble. And he's getting away with it. I mean, look, Sean Payton needs to find a way over the next week and a half, 2 weeks, to help this Broncos offense be one thing. The thing that makes the Chiefs and even the Chargers this season not be too obvious is actually being surprising with some of their play calls. Yes, the Chargers are running the ball a lot more, but you need to be less predictable. This Broncos team are so predictable. I feel like when I was watching them against the Steelers, I knew what they were going to do every time. And I'm not like a world class play caller, but I could, oh yeah, he's going to run the ball there, or he's going to hand it off. It's too obvious. And at this point now, if you're a Broncos fan or a Broncos, analyst or an acquaintance, it's boring. It's been nearly 10 years, lads. In fact, if this 10 years come some point next year, I'm bored, lads. And I can see them picking second in the draft next year as a stands mark. I just don't see how that team can suddenly go on a run now or find a way to win a few games. Like, the way they've played over the first 2 weeks, I can't see them winning the game in the next 5.
Do you know what, Michael? It's funny because these teams, it's almost like we're giving them a lot of time because we think they're going to be so poor that going forward, they actually mightn't get as much airtime. And again, there's 9 teams that we're going to mention here. But for going into the year, they didn't have a quarterback behind, like a legitimate starting quarterback. Like they set it up that this was their guy. They have Zach Wilson as the backup. Like we knew back in February not February, April, that this is the way they're going to.
They forced Sean. They forced Wilson out the door.
And then true. And Peyton had wanted nothing to do with him. But then on defense, it's just like slowly but surely, the defense has just lost all of its talent as well. So like as a fan, what are you rooting for really? Like it's not like there's like who's the star player? Who's the household name outside of your defensive back there?
Nobody. I mean, I would at a stretch say Alex Singleton, the guy that's been in this podcast. He's a great guy, he's a fantastic player. But they've lost Justin Simmons. He's probably the next guy up to an extent. PS2 still needs a couple more years to really get that next level. There's nobody in the offense.
At least Pat Surtain, though, is a household name. Again, we don't want to dwell on it too long.
He is, but he'll be a bigger household name in the future. He's not at that level yet. He's definitely
when you're on a team without any identity that people don't want to tune in for, that there's no star power. It's like that's where it's like he's at the peak of his powers now because people are going to tune out of the Broncos the way things are going.
Yeah, I agree completely. Jason, who's next? Who is next? Mark? Is Mark next?
Yeah, Jason is the pick.
I'll go with the Giants.
Hey.
Speaking of teams, yeah, that's definitely a team I'm not too interested in watching at the moment. I think it's a make or break season for Dabble, and it's just been a nightmare start. He overachieved in his first year. Second year kind of benefited the doubt because we saw what he did in year one and we thought, okay, might be a down period here, that's to be expected, but he started off on a bad note here as well, and it's could be looking at 2 bad seasons in a row if they don't get a grip of things very fast. And I'm just kind of a bit tired of watching Daniel Jones, to be honest. Very poor in week 1. In week 2, he improved, and the talk in the press conference now all week has been he's doing better. He did a lot of things better in that last game. It was 170 yards and 2 touchdowns is what he had against Washington. And he's been in the league now since 2019. So I'm kind of done with seeing these horrific games followed by an okay game and then positive speak from the coaches backing them up. I just think it's not like there's a lot of options out there. And, I'm sure they would have moved on in the draft if they could have. But I'm just a bit done with the Giants right now, and I just don't see them going very far or going any serious threat with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Malik Neighbors looks great. That's a positive for fans. I think he had 18 targets in the last game. Daniel Jones had 28 throws. 18 of them went to Neighbors, which is a bit bonkers. They had some good additions on defense with Brian Burns and Thibodeau. Yet to see them shine so far. It's early, so look, it might take them a few weeks to get settled in. So things can improve for the Giants, but I just see their ceiling as being so low right now with how the offense looks with Jones at quarterback.
And the offensive line has given them protection. Malik Neighbors is, turned into a star. The funny thing for the Giants is their fans are getting most glory paying attention to Saquon Barkley dropping a pass.
I mean,
on Monday night.
I mean, look, that's always going to happen with a rival. But we do have to bring this up. We have to bring this up. They had one extra spot on their team at 12 o'clock Eastern last Sunday, and they decided not to bring up your man from Derry, Jude. And they knew that Gano was not fit. That is, I'm sorry, that is a sackable offence. That's a joke.
I don't know about sackable. Like, I think it's difficult.
You can't, but it's one position. You cannot expect a kicker to not be
because it's a freebie. Because it's a freebie, and that's the whole thing that we talked about all off season. That because of the IPP designation, you do get that freebie spot, and you can activate them on game day. I just think that they don't have faith in him as a kicker yet, and that's why they want to let him grow. They're saying this is a 3-year program that he's on, essentially. I'm not saying it's going to take 3 years, but I think that just says, Michael, that they do not have the faith in him as a kicker, that if he wasn't on that IPP, he wouldn't have made any kind of practice squad.
So you're telling me that obviously Gano went down after one play, and we wish him the best in the next few weeks. You're telling me they have more faith in Jimmy Gillen to kick a ball than Jude Magatamley lost. I think that's a...
I think it's poor coaching. I think
there's members of the media for 30 years were questioning that decision last week, and he couldn't give an answer. Like, that's unacceptable. That's just my fault. But
no, I think I think that you're dead right in what you're saying, but I think you have to just attribute it to he didn't want to say I don't have faith in Jude, because that would have knocked his confidence. That's all I can say. That you have to read between the lines on that one.
And so should point out that Graham Gano came out in strong defence of Dabble during the week, because he said the injury was completely unrelated to the one he was nursing going in. He was going in with a groin, and he pulled a hamstring on the opening kickoff. So, look, he might just be defending his coach, but should point that out.
You won't hear this too much from me this year or at any point in my life up Derry. Going forward, Mark, you're going to talk about the Rams, apparently. And he's now in mute. It's funny because he was slagging me for being in mute.
How did you know it's going to take the Rams 4th overall? I was picking my jaw up off the 4th. I am going to pick the Rams 4th overall, but I don't like you making my picks for me.
Sorry, apologies. I mean,
let me see.
I'll just shut the whole thing down. Good night, God bless.
Maybe the Rams are going to be my team. Last week we talked about injuries. And God forbid they got worse. And I said, look, how are you going to now put the offense onto Cooper Kupp's shoulders? He's going to have to take half the snaps. Look, he has been taking 36% of the snaps. He's gone out injured now. And this is 2022 written all over it, when the Rams, coming off a Super Bowl, just had no interest in being out there. It seems they obviously were. Matt Stafford was in and out of the lineup with concussions. They had Cooper Kupp injured that year. Aaron Donald injured that year. Sean McVay was heading towards the TV booth, and they went 5-12, the worst record of a defending Super Bowl champion since the Broncos. I'm
trying so hard to be like neutral and professional here, but I'm just beaming at the thought of this Rams team struggling right now.
Oh, but what a shame, because last year was supposed to be a down year for them, and Puka Nacua completely turned it around. But like, you're so hobbled 2 weeks in that I think everyone is fairly like, look, you're allowed to just pull the plug on them, because there's no way they stand a chance. Like, they're missing the O-line guys. The defense that was absolutely torched by Kyler Murray the other day also has its injuries. I mean, the DBs, you're missing John Johnson and Darius Williams. Like, they're on IR. Like, the reason Cooper Kupp isn't on IR is because they're like, we can't bring him back because we only have a certain number of players that we can bring off IR. It's 2 weeks into the season. They're already figuring out who they can bring off IR. It's just, you have to shut this one down early, unfortunately. And we'll see you in 2025 for the LA Rams.
Sean McVay could have commentated for a year. You just don't know in that sense. He could have done the crack. I'm going to try and roll through this. I'm going to go with the Titans next, gents. Yes, Will Levis. I don't know if anyone found out this week, but Will Levis, his phone number leaked online. So just when you thought that it couldn't get any worse for him,
I did not. Did you give it a ring?
I didn't give it a wee ring. Hi.
Is he coming on the podcast?
Well, probably not. He was forced to change his phone number after he received, shall we say, unwanted messages from members of the Tennessee media. I'm not sure if it was the Hawk Tua girl who's actually that. Do you know where that Hawk Tua girl's from in Tennessee? Guess.
No idea.
Belfast, Tennessee. There you go. Unbelievable. Hawk Tua. Will Levis's ex-girlfriend, to make it worse for him, is called Gia Duddy, and Gia Duddy put a rough, cryptic TikTok post up which said karma, like karma's a bitch or something like that there, and she was basically trying to sort of say that this is on you, and I'm so happy that you've had a bad start to the season, even though they're apparently on good terms. There was a situation on Sunday last week where I actually had to write it down. There was a 15-yard horse collar penalty, a 6-yard run from Will Levis, 7-yard pass, 6-yard pass, and then it went incomplete, 1-yard run, 18-yard pass. He's like a yo-yo, loss of 1-yard run, incomplete. And then we all know, and I genuinely think that this play at 3rd and goal on the 6-yard line last week, when if you haven't seen it, folks, where have you been at? Levis took the snap and tried to escape the collapsing pocket, and the defensive lineman sort of forced him to go over a bit, and then he fell backwards to pass to his running back. And to see Brian Callahan mouth, "What the are you doing?" is legendary. Look, the Titans are actually ranked 29th in the league by many experts, but their defense across the first 2 weeks has shown some signs of potential. Harold Landry's done okay. They have a really pivotal game this week against the Packers. I just don't see how, and we all, I now expect Jordan Love to play this Sunday, which would be amazing if it happened. I just don't see how they're going to beat the Packers, but the fate of this team is hinging on Will Levis and his inability at the moment to adapt and improve quickly. He's going to have to be benched by next week if he does not sort this out. The season looks like it's lost before it really does begin, and it really goes back to that conversation that we had a second ago about Bryce Young. It's given these guys time, it's given the guys confidence, and it's sort of seeing exactly what happens. But certainly for me, Levis looks like a guy, he's facing extreme criticism for turnovers. But not just that, their offensive line looks crap as well. The Titans are in free for all, boys.
Well, that was it. That's why the coaching team was brought in to fix the offensive line. What would you think? So their backup quarterback, Mason Rudolph, obviously you are a resident Steelers expert. Would you be happy going to Mason Rudolph?
Yes.
I would see that's such a... And it could happen this game too.
I'll see you next week in Croke Park. Move on. If you're going to Croke Park next week, let us know if you're going. What do you say, bring back Tannehill? Yeah.
I mean, certainly it was a better option for him than Will Levis at the moment.
I
interesting
think
Willis
Tannehill
plays for a mini revenge game for Willis as well if he does play for the Packers.
Tannehill's in an excellent position because teams that need quarterbacks, I'm looking at Miami still. Imagine a reunion in Miami, that'd be wild. But he did say earlier on this, because he was going to sign with Green Bay, or he was approached and he said no, or his agent said I'm holding out for a long-term job. So I think Miami could be the play there.
Why
would he? How do you mean what?
In like a long-term job in Citibank or like Santander or something, or what's the how old is Ryan Tannehill? Like a long-term job.
But you know what? Sorry, not long-term. I mean playing into the season. It's like, why would he waste his time in Tennessee? Okay. That he was looking Tennessee. For, because look what Jordan Love is after doing now. If he had signed with them, he'd be like one game and out. So I think he's being smart about it.
Shout out to everyone watching live. Do put a comment on. We'll answer him at the end. Sean Quinn, we see you, my man. We see you. Sounds like a good Jerome man, Jason. Who is next on this state of play? We've got Jason, who's going to make a very intriguing pick at 6.
Did we ever find out if Sean is related to Andy? Because he was keen for the Andy Smith or Andy Quinn talk last week, wasn't he? Maybe let us know, Sean. I'm going to go with the Colts, which is a team I don't think I expected to be talking about this early in the season, but there is plenty of time for them to turn it around. Anthony Richardson looks like a rookie, which is basically what he is after his limited experience last year. Fully capable of pulling out these highlight reel plays, which I love, and he's so exciting, and that's a reason why I'll happily tune into a team like the Colts, and I'm kind of a bit fed up with the Giants right now. But 5 turnover-worthy plays so far this year, and that's just the downside of having Richardson. If that team is to be a serious threat, they had to be going in and beating the Packers last week, because down Jordan Love, that Packers team shouldn't pose the biggest threat on paper. You knew they were going to run first, and they just couldn't do anything about it. And that brings me to the other concerning point of the Colts, which is their run defense. It's only 2 games, but they're conceding 237 rush yards per game. And DeForest Buckner has just gone on IR for at least 4 weeks. So huge concern on defense. Winning football is not turning over the ball and a strong run game. Right now, Colts look like they're going to turn it over, and their opposition is running the ball very strongly. So it's not a winning recipe right now, and they'll have to turn that around fast if they're to have any chance of the playoffs.
And teams seem to know how to play them as well. I was on PFF, and you don't blitz a running quarterback, and obviously we know Anthony Richardson has legs, but they're not even going near him because they're baiting him into, like, you don't blitz Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers because they're well able to read it. But when it comes to Anthony Richardson, he was like at a 12% blitz rate because everyone's like, no, just go and throw the ball, actually, because we just don't want you using your explosiveness. And yeah, he's just not accurate. So I mean, when it comes to that, like, I know you're high on him, Michael, but it seems to be big bombs to Alex Pierce is what's really getting them any kind of yardage.
Big bombs. That means a different thing up here, unfortunately. Just in terms of Anthony Richardson, next week is obviously a big week for the Colts. Let's see what happens in Dublin. Big bombs from Richardson, but right, let's try and roll through these next three teams, quickly.
We're going into the top tier teams now, so we recount real quick who's off the board. 1 was the Panthers, 2 Broncos, 3 Giants, 4 Rams, 5 Titans, 6 Colts, and now we're left with the Bengals, the Jags, and the Ravens. I think 2 of those are far better than who I'll take third, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's kind of funny.
Can I just say now that the teams that we have in this last 3, I'm not happy that we have to try and be negative about them. I'm only joking.
Do you know what? But you know what? When it comes to the Jaguars, like, I'm not surprised that they're still here, but I am surprised they're still here. When you look at the Jaguars, look, it's hard to defend a team because you could say they could be good, but now they play the Bills on Monday night, and then they play the Texans. Their schedule eases up a bit after, but like they could be 0-4. Which is a different place to defend them from. And then again, they've played 2 legitimate teams you can say they're legitimate teams in Miami and Cleveland, and haven't lost by more than 5. But I suppose where I look at it from, they were up 2 scores at halftime against Miami and lost. And they cut down a 13-point deficit against the Browns the other day. And then they conceded a safety instead of a game-winning drive. Looking into the team is quite interesting because it's down to execution, really. 7 players against the Browns were targeted. Only 2 of them brought in more than 50% of their catches. For instance, Christian Kirk had 3 targets, 1 catch for -1 yards. Brian Thomas, Brendan Savage, and Gabe Davis had longs of 66, 30, and 22, respectively. If you remove that, Trevor Lawrence was 9 of 27 for 102 yards. Those 3 catches made up far more than half of the passing offense that day. In week 1 against Miami, you see that they're splitting the running backs. It was like literally Tank Bigsby is in, Travis Etienne is in, and they just kept on alternating. Now, we did see Travis Etienne in a bit more on the weekend, but I just think it comes down to, like, if it's a drop pass or a bad pass, it's just, there's no consistency with Jacksonville. And it's like, there's no focal point of the offense, whether that's, are they running, are they a passing team? It just seems to be, we have Trevor Lawrence and they'll switch it on. But, like, again, when there's the poor passes, when there's the boneheaded plays, it's just difficult to get a read on Jacksonville. And I think that's why they end up losing, even though they were in a very favorable position in Miami in week 1. And it looked like this is where they're going to get a game-winning drive against Cleveland the other day. They're not able to get it done. So I think it's very difficult to critique and figure out what exactly we have with Jacksonville. Maybe they turn around, or maybe they just sink to the back of the pile. The 2 teams that are left, Cincinnati and Baltimore, at least they're be in contention for winning their division. I don't think Jacksonville can see out Houston to win the AFC South, and all of a sudden, wildcard makes. That's a difficult spot to be in.
I agree with that. We're obviously 2 weeks out, so 2 more games out from the Jaguars then getting on a plane to London, and I think it's a lazy take to say that, the Jags could come over here 0-4 and turn it on. Come on.
But do you know their schedule actually gets
now for 2 or 3 years where they've been improving year on year, and now they've started that season off like this. Come on.
Do you know what, though? It's difficult when you talk about they have to face 4 going into the season, 4 teams that we'd expect to be in the playoffs: Miami, Houston, Buffalo, and Cleveland. So it does soften up to a certain extent that they will come and obviously play New England, who will see what New England is by then. They obviously play the Chicago Bears, who have no offense right now. Then they play Green Bay, Philadelphia, Minnesota. There is teams there that are difficult, don't get me wrong, but it just seems like straight out the gate, they got a very difficult schedule, and maybe they're able to stack some wins. But yeah, that's not to say they're going to the playoffs. I just think it's a very difficult slate.
I'm taking the Bengals here, just as we roll through these last two teams, and we'll let Jason go with that last team. We'll not name who it is. The one thing, whenever I was looking at, I watched a bit of the tape of the Bengals game against the Chiefs last week, and for a team that sits 21st in EPA, like that's a flag for any Bengals fan at the start, especially on where they were year to year. They were much higher inside the top 6 last year, I believe. But the one thing that got me wasn't the play of that actual game. Yes, there were points where it was concerning, but it was more Joe Burrow coming out after during the week and talking about how it affects him, how a loss can affect him. He seems to be really struggling mentally, losing these games. They really struggled week 1, but I was impressed to an extent of how they held in last week against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. But when you're sitting 21st in EPA and you're still getting to that point where you're not winning those games with scoring 20 odd points, there's still some mistakes to make. Like that huge interception which took place last week, and then Burrow gives it away again within seconds. That's not good enough. That needs to be really managed effectively. You would expect them to rebound against the Commanders coming up into week 3 this weekend, and to really avoid a deeper hole of jeopardy going 0-3. It couldn't happen. But I look at the situation with Jamar Chase, and it now seems as if Jamar Chase is not going to sign any deal because apparently he feels misled. I feel like you're talking about all not being well, certain teams' dressing rooms. Something tells me that the all is not well in Cincinnati, and two guys in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in LSU who had that historic season. Best friends, one of the best combination offenses ever to win the college football national championship in the process. It looks like that relationship could be coming to an end at the end of the year. And are we looking at a divorce in front of us, in our eyes, straight up? They don't look confident, and it's going to take a lot for this team to bounce back over the next few weeks. I think this team is the team where it's going to take more work than the Jaguars or the Ravens, and I know that's a big statement to make, but I genuinely feel like Burrow is lacking a lot of confidence.
Would you have taken them in my spot then, Michael?
Hmm?
Would you have taken them where I took the Jags then?
Yeah, 100%.
I suppose if we're looking at this season in isolation, I might be more worried, but I think there's just such a history now of the Bengals starting slow. I'm almost assuming they'll turn it around, which maybe isn't the right way to think about things. But it's funny thinking of the fine margins of the NFL as well, that the two teams we're discussing last are the Bengals and the Ravens, whereas the Kansas City Chiefs are the consensus best team in the league. Well, the Chiefs beat the Ravens by a millimeter at the back of the end zone, and the Chiefs beat the Bengals by a debated flag at the end of the game. So it is fine margins we're talking about here between being the best in the league and being one of the 0-2 teams. But yeah, I'm left with the Ravens. Tough team to argue negatively against, to be honest. They have had a slow start. I think their defense, it's strange, they're best in the league at defending the run. Under 50 yards a game has their opposition. Yet they're conceding the most passing yards per game in the league, 257. I think part of that is down to new defensive coordinator Zach Orr. You can't expect him to fire on all cylinders from day one, and there's going to be some growing pains. And as a result of that, we've seen them give up some explosive plays. So that's been the main issue on defense. On offense, they lead the league in yardage, but they just aren't scoring in the end zone or in the red zone once they get down there. It's been a lot of field goals, pre-snap penalties. Justin Tucker hasn't looked like his usual self. He's getting a bit of slack. So just small things like that I just wouldn't. It doesn't seem like a deep-rooted issue. The Ravens are going to be fine. They're going to clean things up. They have one of the best head coaches in the league, and I'm sure they'll be whipped into shape before long. And
then again, like if I'm going to bring up the Jags getting off to a difficult start, like the Chiefs obviously beat. You can't excuse Baltimore losing to the Raiders the other day. The Cowboys, the Bills, the Bengals, the next teams up. That's a difficult slate in itself. So, they're going to have to turn around. But again, if they're able to come through those teams, it's all well and good. But I think we're going to have our answer by the time that game rolls around, or the end of it. Certainly, Baltimore versus Cincinnati. We know which one of these teams are going to be torched. That is the end of this topic and the end of this segment on the podcast. We've went on that long in a good way that we're going to take a break on this podcast network. You can listen in Pro Football Ireland. Shout out to my friend Tom, who's texting me right now, making this sound go off in the background. This is not going to be in the podcast. But Mark, I didn't have the draft noise, but I did have this
which is not going to make it in the podcast, so I thought, why not play right now? It's too early for that, isn't it? Yeah? 94 days to go. 94 days to go, boys. But we all know...
you know what? If you're going to edit it out of the podcast, I actually got a text in that last segment of available in Northern Ireland only, so Michael, maybe you'll be able to get us some. It's a Christmas-themed can of Coke Zero that is mashed up with Oreo. How does that work? What are you guys into up there? What are you into?
What are we into up there? What are you talking about? Like, what are we into up there? Christmas?
It's Northern Ireland only. It's a Christmas can, and it's Oreo, and it's Northern Ireland only. We cannot get it down here. So
it's I can openly say this now. We're not putting this in the podcast. We'll stop very, very quickly. This is not happening in the north. It's happening in, I think, like England, Scotland, Wales. I have not seen it. So thank you for that. I'm not buying you one. If I see one about it, might be in the co-op. I'll let you know. In the Moy, and if you're watching this, have a big Black Friday party in the Moy. Mark is staying at Sean Cavanagh's house Friday the 29th of November. Is anybody coming up for that? No.
And the which day?
Okay. Friday the 29th of November. Chiefs Raiders.
Okay, sorry.
8 o'clock.
You said to December. I was like, we'll have a cozy Christmas. Those 3 up
8 o'clock on a Friday night, boys. 8 o'clock on a Friday night. That'll be that'll be tidy. There's like 30 people going already. Shout out to everyone. Here we go. Week 3 of the NFL season rolling on Pro Football Ireland. This is your second part of the podcast. A shout out to Mark Hogan, who made a 40-minute segment that's kicked this all off. You gotta love talking football, lads. Presented by 888 Sport, the official betting partner of the NFL in Ireland and in the UK. 18 plus, be gamble aware. We are a mere weeks out from the London games, the Germany games, and we are, as of right now, at the time of recording, 135 days away from getting on a plane to New Orleans. Scary, scary biscuits. Right. We went. Who isn't? We talked about the teams that are 0-2, and we're going to talk about the teams that are 2-0, and we're going to talk about the teams that are not for real. We're only going to say one team this time, Mark. But do you want to go first?
Yeah, I suppose, like I topped the first one, we'll say that since 1990, teams that started 2-0 have reached the playoffs 63.9% of the times. That means 5 of the teams that are 2-0 right now are fancy to go. So if we run down through them, the Chargers, the Steelers, Texans, Vikings, Chiefs, Saints, Seahawks, Bucks, and Buffalo. So 5 of those teams to be fancied to go to the playoffs. I suppose it's up to us to determine one each that we don't think is going to go there. And off the early part of the season, 2 games in, I suppose my pick is going to be the LA Chargers. They are exactly as we said they would be through those first 2 weeks, a very run first attack. We said that's what Harbaugh wanted. They went and got J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins has been an absolute revelation, leads the league in rushing right now. But I suppose for me, we hate to use the fraud word. It's kind of cringy and cliche, but can I just say, look at who they've played, the Raiders and the Panthers. That those teams lend to running the ball. We need to see a good bit more of them, because as they go forward, and especially they play the Steelers this weekend, another 2-0 team, we're going to see them playing some proper defenses. Look, I'm not taking away from Max Crosby, obviously a phenomenal pass rusher, but yeah, I mean, what more is there to say? It's like we want to see more Justin Herbert. We want to see more like Lad McConkey and stuff like that. Was what I was really excited about this to get into the year. So I think that they've had a very easy beginning to the season, but for me, I'm not convinced quite yet, and I'm going to need to see that slate toughen up.
Jason, I changed my selection, so I'm hoping that you're not going to pick my selection. Go for it.
Yeah, well, just on the Chargers quickly, I suppose they're unproven. You know, they've done a lot well so far, but we just want to see it against strong opposition. So I think that's a valid point. But I do think what they are doing looks very promising, and I didn't expect the results to look this promising so fast with Jim Harbaugh implementing his style of play. You know, just one stat I'd like to read about them. They've had 3rd and 3 or less 9 times so far this year, and they've rushed the ball on all 9 of those attempts, converting 7. All of last year, they only ran the ball on 42% of those attempts. So if that's not Harbaugh instilling his philosophy from day one, I don't know what is.
I think the problem with them is they have a great run offensive line, but the pass offense, but the O-line isn't defending Justin Herbert, and giving them time. So that's where I want to see them not have a massive lead over the Panthers and not be able to run the ball and be forced to throw it a bit more until I'm going to especially like we are talking about versus those other teams. It's kind of in a vacuum we're looking at them. So I want to see the pass game tested, because that was it. They lost those wide receivers. They did focus on the run game. There's nothing wrong with that, obviously. And we see like how the run game has been such a compliment in Houston. But for me right now, I need to see some more passing really. And I guess the defense has been fine. But again, we're going to see. I just think it's interesting now. Look, Pittsburgh isn't a massive matchup, but it's definitely a step up.
Herbert is not fully fit either. So that's
it as well. Yeah, missed Wednesday at least. Yeah.
And obviously, none of us have been previewing the game more so than myself on the Irish Steelers podcast. Next week, Croke Park, week 4, baby.
Well,
Mark, what are you going to say to Jarlath Burns next week? What are you going to... Mark, if you had one thing to say to Jarlath Burns next week, what would it be? Go for it.
What was the deal with the GA contingent? No, it does have to be Steelers are going to make it Armagh related.
Why didn't you fix it for Soupy to get an All-Star? That's
literally.
What's going on there? Soupy Campbell.
He's in NFL mode, man.
He's in NFL mode. He'll be in NFL mode next week anyway. Big Jarlath. Looking forward to seeing everybody down there in Croker next week. Can I ask everyone not to laugh at me when I'm on stage, please? Jason, you'll not be there. We'll miss you next week. You're on your hollybobs next week, are you?
I am. Off to Tuscany.
And you, so just so people are aware of this, so we are planning, it won't be live, but we won't have this next week, but we have a sit down with Arif Hassan in JR Mahon's next Wednesday. There's look, come down, enjoy it, folks, but it will be a bit of a different podcast next week. So Jason, you will be missed, of course. Who's your team?
So I've gone with the Steelers, 2-0 obviously, and they're actually playing the Chargers this weekend. But they've one touchdown. They've won 2 games and they only have 1 touchdown on offense, which is bizarre. 18 points and 13 points. They've beaten the Broncos, who Michael thinks are going to be picking second in the draft, and the Falcons in week 1, which granted we don't know what to make of the Falcons just yet. But I don't care. Mike Tomlin, he's a magician. He can get wins where no other coach can, and he's going to do that again this year with solid defense and an okay run game. But it's just not sustainable, and they're no serious threat with the way the offense looks. Just 3.6 yards per rush attempt so far. So even while they're winning games with good defense and the run game isn't particularly impressive. And at quarterback, then, it's not the most ideal situation. Be interesting to see what they do with Russell Wilson when he returns, if they stick with Fields. The consensus that Fields is doing okay, but I think the barometer for his type of play is not great. I think
he's done well. I think he's done really well in the position he's in personally. But again,
But I think that just sums up where the standards are at, because by no means does the stat line look oppressive. He's doing enough to win the games. He's not doing what Will Levis is doing and throwing away a good defensive performance with foolish mistakes. So you got to give him credit there, but he's not being asked to do a lot either. But yeah, look, I just don't see the Steelers being a serious threat. I think they could carve out a nice winning season again, and Tomlin can keep his thing going. But with that offense in today's NFL, I wouldn't be worried about them.
Mark, I think if they can get Fields going, and this, look, obviously there comes an asterisk on this point I'm about to make, of course, but if Justin Fields can just turn it on a wee bit, they've got George Pickens, they've got a good run game, their defense is the best in the league. I mean, they've certainly got a chance. I love how me and Jason are having a wee hissy fit here before he goes to Tuscany. Are you getting engaged in Tuscany, or what's the crack? No, I'm joking.
Already there. I do need to convince her to throw on Cardinals Titans on Sunday night. That'll be an interesting conversation.
And thank you for that. You can watch that game on thezone.com/ProFootballIreland if you're not at JR Mahon's this weekend. And every game which is not blacked out this weekend, if you do click on it, it might get Mark a taxi. Mark, can you walk yet, or what's the crack?
Yep. Lost crutches this week.
Boom.
Still a bit of pain there, but it's been a relief to not have to grab a boot or crutches in the morning. So debuted on Sunday at the 49ers watch party. It was great to be down with those boys, and it was swollen like hell the next day, but
I
we go with it.
I'm next up to get the leg done because Jason had his done last year, you had yours done this year, and I'll be out for the 25 season. That's it.
Do you know what? So I feel like I jinxed myself when I broke the leg. I missed a holiday to Italy that I booked to Sorrento. When I saw Jason's Instagram stories making it look fantastic, he really sold me on it. So when Jason goes away to Tuscany this weekend, do not fall in love with the place to book yourself a holiday, because that's how it happens. That's the jinx.
I'll go quickly. It is. I'll go quickly into Seattle for this podcast, and it's funny because you've seen a few people this week talk about Seattle. I was actually, I'm not gonna lie. Remember last week we were laughing about, oh, you got the topic wrong or whatever. I read the topic wrong. I just went, oh yeah, give me the Texans. And then last night I was like, I can't talk. What? The Texans are for real. So yeah. And well, I literally got up on Monday morning and watched 17 and a half minutes of CJ Stroud pure filth on YouTube highlights on Sunday Night Football. Seattle are really interesting. Like, the first game of the season they beat the Broncos, but they took a massive step back in my opinion last week against the New England Patriots in Foxborough. For me, the offensive line is just the real issue, and while you can see really good standout performances from guys like Geno Smith, Boy Mafe, I can't pronounce his name, they don't look like they're the full shilling on the offense, and the offensive line's a major issue. Walker was not available for certain points in the second game, and Zach Charbonnet rushed for 14 times in week 2 for 38 yards. That's an average of 2.7 yards per attempt, and he got a touchdown as well. But there's no room for him to run. They're not giving him the room. That is like pee-wee football, like basic rules. If you cannot allow your offensive guards or your offensive line to be able to allow your offense to actually work, how in the hell are you actually going to work as an offense? It's concerning, and I feel like, they're currently sitting top of the NFC West 2-0. They've got the Dolphins up this week. A strong outing against the Dolphins team, which will be hurting with the quarterback situation, could help them obviously go 3-0, but it could maybe turn the expectation around. But offensively, that offensive line needs to get better. They rushed for only 46 yards last week. You're going to have to see a lot more than that. It's the OL is a massive concern for me, and I certainly do not think the Seahawks are for real, lads. I think they're complete pretenders, and they will lose very, very quickly, if not this week, then the week after. Who does not agree with me?
It will be interesting to see. I don't want to turn the attention away from Seattle, but I am interested to see Miami the next few weeks now, and whether they're just being completely written off now that Tua is out on IR, or can Skylar Thompson come in and show something? So I don't know what to expect from the Dolphins. I think Mike McDaniel is a good enough coach that he'll get some decent play out there, and I absolutely wouldn't rule the Dolphins out of beating Seattle this weekend.
Did you see the frustration, Mark, last week in the offensive coordinator of the Seahawks whenever they couldn't do anything? Because it was hard to watch, man. It was really frustrating.
I didn't see if there was a clip in particular, but I have faith in them because of Mike McDonald. I have faith in them. Just the defense is going to get stronger and stronger, you'd imagine. And obviously they have that talent on the offense. So I wouldn't share the same concerns about them. But again, like when we talk and wrap up this segment, that there's those 2-0 teams, it's fun that we can say 2-0. Someone's always got to go in 2 of the games, because we do have like Jason and I have just gone head-to-head, Chargers versus Steelers, one of them has to win. But then Houston plays Minnesota in another 2-0 versus 2-0. And, the look of some team is going to change a little bit when they're brought off the pedestal a little bit. And we kind of use it to transition in to what's going on in Minnesota. Sam Darnold, we teased them at the very top of the first segment with Bryce Young. But Sam Darnold now is after going and beating the 49ers. I don't know about you guys, but how high are you on him, first of all, Jason?
I was going to give a boring answer and say I need to see more, because it's... he's been in a lot of comfortable situations so far. The team's got up into an early lead and the game has been able to be managed. Kevin O'Connell's doing some great things with him. But more than anything else, we've actually seen him have pretty good stretches in the past. I remember he had a very good stretch for the Panthers when he first arrived with them. So I do just want to see a bit more out of him. But there's no question, through 2 games, he looks good. He's making quick decisions, accurate passes. Supporting cast has been good. It also helps when you have likes of Justin Jefferson on the outside. And I like a quote he had during the week as well, where he said, the more you play football, the more you understand you can't control everything out there, and things are going to happen in a game. Because he did have 2 fumbles and an interception over the last 2 games, but he didn't let it rattle him like it might have in the past. So maybe his confidence is higher. Maybe Kevin O'Connell is kind of encouraging him behind the scenes, and he's just playing a bit looser than normal. So good through 2 weeks, but I definitely need to see more of it before I jump to any strong conclusions.
I'm devastated Mark asked that question, because I was going to say it's time to talk about
Minnesota.
And we were going to get a whole laugh out of it.
I'm so
We
sorry.
did.
I wanted to bring it forward because it's funny, and look, I'm glad that this hasn't been too quarterback heavy over here, but it's nice to do a quarterback. So Kevin O'Connell, I was super excited to see what he would do with Sam Darnold. And I think he is the real reason. He is scheming it up so well, for playing to his strengths or whatever. But going into the season, I said, well, we have to see what he was able to do, because last year he was able, Kevin O'Connell, to get great work out of Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins. So Sam Darnold now, he's 4th in wide open throws. That's when no defender is within 5 yards of you. And it's like, it's down to scheme. Like that 97-yarder that Justin Jefferson had the other day, like backed up in, like he's throwing from his own end zone, is Sam Darnold. They were playing the run. And don't get me wrong, it's still a very good throw into double coverage. But like there's 2 defenders on Justin Jefferson, he's able to beat the man. I wonder, will teams learn how to play him and, bait him into those throws? Because like you were saying, he loves to throw an interception. It's just, he will go for those really tight windows. And as of right now, those windows aren't tight enough because the scheme is so good. But how is that going to go? And you say Justin Jefferson's been injured. He missed the end of the game the last day. And don't get me wrong, it was still impressive. Save for the fact that he did throw an end zone interception, Sam Darnold. Save for the fact that he did fumble on what ultimately was the game clinching drive, but it went out and they were able to retain the ball. He did spread the ball around. He did have big throws. They were able to get it done. I like Sam Darnold a lot. I'm glad that they have him out there on the field versus going through some growing pains with JJ McCarthy. It's just about how teams, because look, there's no point in saying, they haven't played anyone good. They just beat the 49ers.
Yeah.
Like they can be very good, and it's very exciting when we think we're going to see them in a few weeks in London. I hope that the balloon doesn't burst. I don't expect it to burst, but I think this is more about saying, hope that Kevin O'Connell is able to do it when Justin Jefferson potentially is out. Jordan Addison hasn't played since the first quarter of week 1, and TJ Hawkinson, the tight end, has been down too.
And it's that jump between what you said there with TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson. It goes from the whole concept of, can he do it? And it goes back to belief, doesn't it? Like, look, I think Jason touched on it at the start of this podcast this week. You look at Baker Mayfield, and you look at Sam Darnold, and you look at that situation, and you actually say to yourself, that gives Bryce Young hope. If I'm Bryce Young, I'm sitting there.
To bring it full circle, Michael, that is exactly what it's about. Like, It's not like you cannot just say, oh, you're in this situation with no players around you. Those players, exactly. And that's why we're gone from top of the podcast to the end of the podcast. Like, it's throughout the end of it. Jared Goff, all of them. Like, we've seen this, and that's why I think it's so important to not have hot takes and say, oh, Bryce Young is done for. Because the hot take literally 2 years ago was the same about Sam Darnold, and here we are giving him his flowers.
Through it is only 2 weeks, but through 2 weeks, Sam Darnold has the third. He's joint third highest passing touchdowns in the NFL so far this season. Actually, the same stat he shares with this guy called Kyler Murray, who has a slightly higher completion percentage on him, 476 yards through 2 games. But one of the things that really got me going, as I sat with a cup of coffee yesterday going over this, I found a really cool stat from Sam Darnold. I'll try and retweet it at some point. Through 2 weeks, he's got the second most passing touchdowns. As you said there a minute ago, the second highest big time throw rate, the third most big time throws, the third highest yards per attempt, the third highest completed percentage above expected, the third highest PFF passing grade, the fourth highest overall PFF grade, the sixth highest EPA per play, the ninth highest completion percentage, and the ninth most passing yards. among quarterbacks with 25 plus players through 2 weeks. I have seen, and we've all seen, players in this league, quarterbacks, being put down year on year on year with expectation, and then fans scream for somebody else. It is great to see someone that's been put down bring themselves back up again. And I know all of us, or anybody watching, if they have an employer or someone that puts them down or makes them feel like crap, and you put yourself back up again and you feel better for it, well, Sam Darnold's done that. Sam Darnold, the boo, is why I have this on the podcast.
After you saying something lovely like that, I was actually going to say, well, the asterisk next to it is Josh Dobbs looked fantastic for 2 weeks last year too, and all came crashing down. So it's no guarantee for Sam Darnold.
I actually.
So maybe your boss in work is right. Maybe you are using.
Well, I'm not talking about my current employer, and I think we all know who I'm talking about because he's definitely not watching this. Let's keep going forward, lads. Week 3 of the NFL season. We are live in JR Mahon's on Sunday. Mark is buying everybody a double whiskey and Coke at 8:45 on Sunday night.
Hold on a second now. It's a euro off the points. I don't know what the deal on the old mixtures is.
€1 off pints. It's $7.50 for a vodka or whiskey mixer. That is the cheapest you'll find in Dublin showing the NFL this Sunday. And it's only the start. We've got some big things to announce next week. We've got a Super Bowl preview show. And we're going to try and get big lads. I'm talking big guys, lads, to that night, virtually, etc. Who knows what's going to happen. And there's also a Black Friday watch party in Tyrone because it's 6 miles from my house. And I can get a lift home after couple of scoops with the Chiefs and the Raiders. As we move on this week, we've talked about who isn't and who isn't for real, and Sam Darnold. Headache. That's me on a Monday morning, in case anyone can see that picture at the bottom. Excuse me. Which players will cause teams a headache this week, Mark? Or which teams or coaches? I don't know. I got it wrong again, but you tell me.
We've been doing this segment for over a year
in
now.
my defense, in my defense, I'm making all the graphics. If I get it wrong, it's my bad.
No, it's spot on. Jason, do you want to go first? Because I'm worried that we're going to clash, so I'm going to give you the floor first.
Oh, really?
You definitely won't clash with me. You're definitely not going to clash with me.
Well, I said last week you could pick a Panthers opponent every week in this segment and you'll be right. And I'm doing that exact thing again this week. Brock Bowers, tight end for the Raiders. He's been very fun to watch through 2 weeks. Leads the league, leads tight ends in receptions and reception yards. He's 15 receptions for 156 yards through 2 games, and he just looks like everything he was hyped up to be, which is refreshing because sometimes tight ends picked that high in the draft don't shine through, but he's absolutely transitioned to the NFL very well so far. And the Panthers on the back end, like they've struggled against everything. Tight ends has been one of their weak points through 2 weeks, so I think Brock Bowers again could have a good game this week.
This podcast brought to you by 888 Sport. I'm just checking the line there. Panthers -5.5. Oh, sorry, +5.5. +5.5. That might be the closest.
You're going to get in trouble with 888 Sport. 18 plus B gamble.
How about the
+5.5
last week, by the way?
That could be as close as the Panthers get. That could be the closest the Panthers get. They have the Giants in Germany that I think that they could pull off a win there, or they've Washington later on in the year, just for those tracking to see can they. I presume they get a win somewhere, but the team is obviously trending the way.
They're not going to beat. Are they? Do you think they'll actually beat the Giants in Munich? Like we're 7 weeks out?
I think the Giants are poor now, but it's like I think that the atmosphere is going to be so pro Panthers that. I think an unwinning season is so hard to come by that they have to do it somewhere. And the games that I circled was against Las Vegas, against the Giants, and maybe against. It'd be great for the fans, obviously, in Germany. So it's just one that I was paying attention to.
Das fans. Who do you have this week for your headache?
Yeah, I'm after getting away with it one here because, again, I said I thought that maybe Jason and I would clash. Aiden Hutchinson leads the NFL in sacks. He had 5 last week. Obviously, that helped a massive one. And then the week before, he had 12 total pressures, which is normally what a whole team is able to get. Obviously, the pressure that he's bringing disrupts the timing, the rhythm, the accuracy. What does that do against the likes of Kyler Murray, who was fantastic the other day? His pass rush win rate, and this is thanks to Ryan Smith of PFF, is 42.3%. Right now, Myles Garrett led the league at 28.1%. So it's like he's unblockable right now. It's like if he's running at you 1 or 2 times, he's probably going to win. So the Cardinals O-line, which is looking good and obviously looked fantastic against the Rams. I just want to see how it holds up, and are they able to disrupt Kyler Murray, or can Aiden Hutchinson stay? Because right now he's like obviously leading the Defensive Player of the Year race.
Yeah, because
I would say
Kyle Odegaard, Cardinals reporter, he put out the fact that Aiden Hutchinson was lined up on the right tackle last week for most of the game, and if there is a weak spot on the Cardinals O-line, it's right tackle with Kevin Beecham. So nice pick there.
And will they find out the Cardinals? Like, are teams going to learn to blitz Kyler Murray, or like Anthony Richardson? Will they stay off and say no, we don't want him using his legs again?
We will see. You're talking about the Lions and Aiden Hutchinson. One guy that the Lions missed, and none of you boys seen this coming. Remember this moment. None of you boys seen this coming. The Lions really missed Josh Reynolds. I've been very down on the Denver Broncos on this podcast. They're playing the Bucs this week in Tampa Bay in the early window, and while I believe that Baker Mayfield will lead his team to a win, Josh Reynolds in week 2 last week had I think 90 plus yards in the game. It was the third highest in his career. He has really established himself as one of the main threats on this Broncos offense, which is very, very limited at the moment in the roster. And when you really see the way that he could move himself on second and third down situations last week with the Broncos, I can see him maybe getting 1, maybe 2 touchdowns if Bo Nix can get it down the field, garbage time. So maybe not a headache, but I think he will cause a little slight issue for the Bucs defense. Maybe the Broncos might take it close. I don't know. There's your if you're really stuck, put him in this week, or maybe put €1 or £1 on him to score a touchdown. But yeah, I like Josh Reynolds, and for people laughing at me, I picked Tank Dell in week 3 last year.
Yeah, you had some nice sleeper picks last year, no doubt.
Did you go back and check who you picked this week last year? Just
I did.
That is good research. Thank you for that.
Just a reminder, we are in JR Mahon's this Sunday. We also have a live podcast. It's a live podcast, but it's more of a recording next Wednesday with Arif Hassan and Mark. I'm putting you in charge of all the notes for that, so good man, you sort that out, good lad. I'm just gonna have to rock down. Big events in sale next week: our Dublin Super Bowl party and our Black Friday watch party, which Dark Harger is organising. It's me. It's on sale next week. I've had a few people ask us. Obviously, we really appreciate the support. I have had about 5 or 6 people ask on both Instagram and X about why we aren't going anywhere else. We have 4 or 5 days from Championship Sunday to when we go to the States for the Super Bowl. To do any more than 2 events is unrealistic. It's not fair on people, and it's just not going to happen at the moment. We really appreciate people's support. We were down with Jason in Cork. We've been down in Kerry. We've been down in Limerick. We're trying our very best to get around the island of Ireland. Maybe beyond. Maybe we'll go to the Aran Islands next summer. I don't know. Jesus Christ. We will see the crack, but that's the best we can do. There are 70 early tickets for Dublin. Once they're gone, they're gone. The venue is going to look really special. There's more to come on that next week, and you can bet your bottom dollar that if you're on the fence, the guests are going to be off the charts. And the Wi-Fi is going to work, Mark. The Wi-Fi is going to work. As we sort of finish off here with a few questions. Emmett Donlan, who rings a bell. I'm joking. Hi, Emmett. Patriots at 11, he says. No?
Give me the context. Patriots what?
I think he was talking about what we were doing at the start, the teams that were...
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'd be interested. I'm very interested in that game tonight because the Jets haven't been, they're strong favourites, but the Patriots have looked very solid on defense. Aaron Rodgers looks good, but the whole Jets offense as a whole has not been, firing on all cylinders so far. So I could see an upset happening tonight.
I think a lot of people seem to be picking the Patriots. They're like, the Patriots defense will be able to shut down Breece Hall, and then what you do?
I can't see them going to MetLife and winning. I think Rodgers. I think it's a closer game, but I think the Jets cover the line. I think Emmett was talking about our opening segment where we ranked the teams from, remember we done like 9 picks.
Yeah, what's he saying? That they're the 11th worst team?
I don't know. Sean Quinn says Hup Dungannon. So shout out to Sean Quinn, and he did say there was Here, I think, Mark, you're going to have to come up to Dungannon that night in January. It's a big night. 130 people. That's a big night. That is a big, big night. Guys, who do you think will be the next quarterback in trouble if week 3 results show another upset? I mean, a guy that's not in trouble, that might be in trouble, it's hard. I mean, Daniel Jones is always in trouble, but he's not really being looked at in trouble at the moment because we've other guys there. I would say maybe Daniel Jones, lads, if he has a poor game this week. What do you guys think?
How in trouble is Deshaun Watson? I mean, obviously there's rumblings there. I mean, it's the Giants, so it's not going to be too bad. Like, I suppose there's very blatant, obvious ones. I mean, fucking Bo Nix, is he in? No, I don't think so. Like, they can't dip out. I think it's very obvious.
Second Bo Nix.
I think it's very obvious who is in trouble. And then the rest of them, it's kind of surprising. It's like, Justin Fields, does he get dropped for Russell Wilson? Caleb Williams, obviously the offense hasn't hit the heights that people want yet, but it's kind of outside his control. Gardner, I don't know. I think that the guys right now are quite obvious, and who I think is going to be in trouble is going to be Matthew Stafford, because obviously he's now O-line. That's the whole. No, I mean, he's not going to get benched, but he's going to be in serious trouble this weekend because he's no one.
His wife could bench him. No,
I think a name who, when I say in trouble now, I by no means am saying he's going to get benched or cut or anything like that. But Philadelphia fans are not patient fans, and if Jalen Hurts has a couple more lackluster games, they're going to be angry. So he needs to have a strong Jalen Hurts performance that we've seen over the past couple of years.
Interesting. Okay, we've got a couple more questions. Here we've got a guy that can't watch because he's text saying that he's watching TV with his wife, so he's not allowed to watch. How doomed are the Broncos, says Ross. They're in trouble, lad.
Did you hear Michael talk about his own team 5 minutes into the podcast until 15 minutes into the podcast? Now they're in a pretty bad way. We can't.
That was definitely you and the Cardinals last week, lad. But okay, like we'll just leave that there. We've got a couple more questions. Joe McCourt. Joe. Don't know who you are, lad, but that looks like your wee boy's wearing his throne top, so you're a good man. Tyreek and Tua with stretched Seahawks cornerbacks without Tua. I definitely fancy Seattle's chances this weekend with Skylar Thompson chucking it about. Yeah, interesting. Skylar Thompson. Imagine having a child called Skylar.
Dolphins fans that are surprised that he was the quarterback choice as a backup. I think there's a few teams went with this strategy. We talked about the Packers last week, but maybe I'm old school, but if I want a backup, I want a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I want a traditional quarterback who can come in. Colt McCoy come in, win a couple of games.
Earlier on.
Your new mate.
That's why I said earlier on, Ryan Tannehill is still hanging around because, do I want Ryan Tannehill or Skylar Thompson? Ryan Tannehill has to be the choice there.
You don't want an experiment as your backup quarterback, and that's what Skylar Thompson is.
You don't want to be a play away from having Nick Mullins stepping in for you, or Josh Dobbs, or there's plenty of the backups around the league or something crazy. Even the Cardinals, Jason, it's like I don't know where we're at.
This is a bit more of a timed question. Thank you, Alistair. Breece Hall or Ramondre Stevenson tonight? Who's having the bigger night?
I think Ramondre Stevenson's because the Patriots run game, they're completely attacking the run game right now, and Breece Hall will be the main focus point for that Patriots defense. So yeah, I'd actually go for Ramondre Stevenson.
And one final question, I think it must be for Jason, from Jeff Reinbold. Will Parky Queeve be ready for 2020?
Good effort at spelling Queeve, Jeff.
Close. He says Mahalo as well. Lads, that's us for week 3 of the season. We've done it again. Good fun as always. Big events until next week, and we are in Dublin on Sunday. Mark, have you any final words for anyone?
No, we talked to that there. How many teams did we actually get through? I think we did a good job, so we'll take that.
The Steelers backup is
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Thanks, Mickey. See you soon, mate. Really appreciate that. Looking forward to Monday night, lads. Find that the overnight. Monday. I still can't believe that happened. I think Mark's in mute.
Monday.
2 Monday night games this week. Looking forward to that there. We appreciate everyone listening to the podcast. We'll be back Sunday nights. Our Monday morning football podcast will be out. We then got Jeff's podcast, his picks, which is out this weekend. The podcast will be live on Saturday morning. And then obviously the Monday reaction, which is recorded at 6:30 on a Tuesday morning. And then we'll be back next week as well with a different sort of podcast, but we're very, very much looking forward to it. I want to thank Arif Hassan for doing that. Next week, we're in J.R. Mahon's on Sunday. We're presented by 888 Sport, the official betting partner of the NFL. Michael, Mark, Jason, good night. God bless. Keep her lit. I couldn't find a background. Good night.